At 19, I hired a bodyguard. He was tough, spoke little, and could endure my harassment without flinching. My various seduction tactics never seemed to faze him. One night, he grabbed my hand, which had been misbehaving, and coldly said, "Behave yourself." When this incident became known, even my friends urged me, "Why are you making things difficult for a brick wall?" So, I let him go. I never expected to run into him again at 25. There he was, amidst a crowd, smoking and calling me vaguely, "Come over, sit on my lap." It was one of those old-fashioned party games, truth or dare. The bottle spun a few times, and landed on the least conspicuous spot on the couch. No one told me the star of the evening was Ryan, and nobody mentioned that the bodyguard who had followed me for 2 years had transformed into a wealthy heir. As the night progressed, I felt like I was sitting on needles. After all, I had truly tormented Ryan back then. Even my friend said, "If Ryan ever hits it big, you'll be the first to suffer." At that moment, Ryan, lounging on the couch, replied calmly with just 3 words, "Truth or dare." The question was fairly straightforward, but the person asking it was trembling. "What's the most thrilling love confession Ryan has ever heard?" The room fell silent, all eyes on Ryan. I was in a navy blue skirt, and Biff, sitting closest to me, had been drinking heavily and had quietly placed his hand on my right leg. I gritted my teeth. Just then, a deep voice cut through my thoughts. Ryan, trying to mimic my tone from back then, said, "Tears are like black silk on a man." "Ryan, show me your tears." A few seconds later, the crowd erupted in gossip-filled gasps. I was completely stunned. It was hard to judge. After all, when I had Saturday on Ryan's lap and said that, he had remained calm. He had merely lowered his voice and warned me, "Quinn, are you not afraid that one day I'll kill you?" And I had shamelessly asked, "How would you do it? In the bedroom or on the sofa?" Now, focused on escaping Biff's wandering hand, I couldn't dwell on the past. Biff was a business partner I needed to negotiate with. If things went south now, our recent efforts would go to waste. When the ball pointed at me, Biff's hand instantly withdrew. I breathed a sigh of relief. "I'll choose dare." In my peripheral vision, Ryan leaned back on the couch. His handsome face was partially hidden by the dim lighting, and he played with his lighter in a bored manner, exuding an untamed air. Someone suggested, "Why don't you let Ryan come up with a dare?" I felt my back stiffen, sweat breaking out. Ryan lit his cigarette, the flame flickering on and off. He slowly called my name, "Quinn." The 3 words were savored on his lips. I had imagined various embarrassing scenarios, but then he said, "Come over, sit on my lap." The scene became chaotic, and Biff's face turned pale. Social interactions in the business world are different. People dislike playing games they can't win or those who don't keep their word. I was in a daze, not even sure how I ended up on Ryan's lap. He placed one hand on my waist, the warmth of his palm coming through the silk fabric. Ryan tilted his head and asked the people behind me, "Is this Biff's girlfriend?" "No, no." Hearing this, Ryan smiled faintly. "Then Biff shouldn't mind, right?" "Of course not. Ha ha." "Ryan, feel free." I bit my lip and awkwardly rested my hand on Ryan's stomach. As I tried to get up, he immediately pulled me back down onto his lap. His voice became much calmer and flat, but I knew he was angry. "Is that so?" "But I mind." He left it at that, not specifying what he minded, leaving it open to interpretation. I was almost carried away by Ryan. The physical difference between us meant my resistance was futile. Once we reached the hotel, he pressed me into the bathtub. He turned on the shower, and hot water cascaded down, creating a foggy mist. "Ryan, what are you doing?" I struggled to push him away, splashing water everywhere. He remained expressionless, unresponsive, and climbed into the bathtub with me. I was trapped and unable to move. We both got quite wet in the confined space. Ryan's tight shirt revealed his muscle definition. He held my ankle, bending my right leg, and kept the shower head pointed at the same spot. It took me a while to realize where the water was focused on the area Biff had touched. Ryan had a strong possessive streak, but throughout, I was never really his, and he didn't seem to care much for me. Unable to handle it, I changed my approach, speaking softly as I tugged at his collar. "Ryan, are you jealous?" In front of him, I was never the demure type. I didn't expect a favorable answer from him, but it turned out that people do change over the years, and when men have money, they often change for the worse. The quiet, reserved man from before was now wet and provocative, teasing me with, "Why not play along? Didn't you enjoy role-playing before?" He picked me up and wrapped a towel around me, leaning in close to my ear. Ryan whispered, "Didn't you like calling me good little boy, or brother-in-law? Or maybe, didn't you like calling me good little darling?" His words dragged me back into memories when I used to tease him. Terms of endearment were more impactful than just Ryan. Ryan wasn't always cooperative, but he'd respond after much persistence. Only when I called him good little darling did he raise an eyebrow and look at me intensely. Now, in his embrace, I shivered, my gaze becoming hazy. Ryan knew me better than most after spending 2 years together. He chuckled softly, his tone becoming seductive, calling me little mom. Then his tone shifted dangerously. Try letting someone touch you like that again. I had different feelings for him, but time had changed nothing. Ryan was the bodyguard I hired when I was 19. What was his role? He could find hidden cameras my stepfather secretly installed in my room, stop my drunken stepfather from trying to crawl into my bed at night, and pull me away from my half-sister's outstretched hand. After my father's death, my mother remarried a very wealthy man, who was well regarded by many, but his character was lacking. Ryan must have pitied me, staying by my side for 2 years even when I couldn't pay him. At 19, I was quite naive, testing the boundaries of our professional relationship, wanting more security. Few people could repeatedly save me from danger, so I sought more reassurance. I would often call Ryan in the middle of the night, around 3 or 4. When he answered, he grit his teeth and asked, "What trouble are you in now?" Sometimes, he'd coldly reply when I insisted he call me sister. I'm a bodyguard, not a male model. More often, when I wore a skimpy top and acted bold and mature in front of him, he'd just smoke and casually say, "What's the fuss? Act like it." The last time, I was half drunk, with red eyes, and knocked on his door. Throwing myself at him, he grabbed my misbehaving hands and said coldly, "Behave yourself." After that night, even my friends said, "Quinn, why are you making things difficult with a brick wall?" So, I decided to back off and terminate the contract. I called him one late night. After a long silence, Ryan's sweet voice answered, "Ryan, who's calling?" I replied, "I don't need you anymore." There was only silence on the other end. "I'll settle the payment in 6 months. Quinn." He finally spoke, but I didn't want to hear it anymore and hung up. After turning off my phone, I found a place to hide for half a month. When I returned to school, my friend seriously told me that Ryan had come to look for me many times. The last thing he said was, "Quinn, are you trying to kill me?" The tense atmosphere was broken by a sudden appearance of a woman. At that moment, Ryan had me pinned between his arm and the window, one hand restraining my arms behind my back, forcing me to call him good little boy. I stubbornly kept silent, biting my lip. A lady's handbag was thrown from a distance and hit Ryan on the back. "Ryan, are you insane?" The man in front of me ignored her, staring coldly at me with a fixed gaze. "Quinn, say it." The woman tried to pull Ryan's wrist, scolding and shouting, but to no avail. He held his ground. She seemed to know Ryan well and eventually gave up. With a sigh, she changed her approach. "Ryan, with your strength, this sister's hands are going to hurt." He paused for a moment and then slowly released his grip. The woman handed me a bag. "I'm Brooklyn, Ryan's sister. Just call me Brooklyn. Change into clean clothes first. You don't want to catch a cold." When I came out in fresh clothes, Ryan kept his eyes lowered and remained silent. Brooklyn kicked him and said, "Introduce me properly." Ryan, with a stick of incense twirling between his fingers, said, "Quinn, a cat's claws, a dog's temperament, with a thief's heart but no courage." The description didn't sound flattering. Brooklyn kicked him again and turned to me with a friendly smile. "Quinn, would you like to introduce me to the Ryan you know?" I glanced at that indifferent man. The cigarette he was holding fell to the ground as if he was waiting for my answer. "Brooklyn, Ryan and I aren't very familiar." There was a moment of silence, so deep I could hear Ryan's low chuckle. The atmosphere grew tense again, and I didn't want to stay any longer. "Brooklyn, I'm leaving. I'll give you a ride." I declined. "No need. My assistant is waiting downstairs." Brooklyn didn't push further and handed me a postcard. "Tonight, it was my brother who was inappropriate. If you need anything, feel free to contact me." It was hard to imagine Ryan having such a graceful sister. The 2 years of our relationship suddenly seemed laughable. It turns out I only knew him as Ryan, a wealthy bodyguard. Ryan didn't say a word until my hand was on the door handle. His voice was rough, like sandpaper. "Quinn, once you step through that door, we're strangers." I hesitated for a moment, then opened the door. About 3 days later, Biff's office had nearly turned down all our company's meeting requests. Maybe it was because my assistant and I had made countless trips back and forth. Its secretary finally relented. Shortly after that dinner, Biff was dragged into an alley and had his left hand nearly crushed. Biff's secretary gave me a long, hard look. "That Ryan of yours is quite capable, and he's got a knack for tormenting people." Biff's left hand might end up wrecked. "Quinn, with a backing like that, why bother lowering yourself to work with us?" I was speechless. Ryan, who else could it be? About an hour later, Josephine dropped me off at the hotel. After a few years of hustling, I had built up some connections. Rumor had it that the Hill family was sending a young and capable leader to meet with the Durham Project team at the hotel. Until then, the Hill family had always leaned towards choosing the Durham family. That's the Durham family, which belongs to my Beasley stepfather. That's why I had settled for Biff. Now that Biff was out of reach, The only chance for my company's revival was with the Hill family. When I pushed open the door, everyone in the room turned to look at me. Ian was there too, and she let out a chuckle. Sis, you're late. I glanced at the man sitting at the head of the table. I breathed a sigh of relief. Of course, it was him. Ryan was dressed in a black suit with a navy tie, flipping through the proposal without even looking up at my rival. Ryan, Arnie, please escort the irrelevant people out. His coldness was as chilling as it had been the other day. He had said, Quinn, once you step through that door, we're strangers. Arnie approached, and I clung tightly to the back of the chair. Ryan looked up after hearing my call, his eyes even colder and full of displeasure. I swallowed what I was about to say and changed my address. Ryan. Ian laughed again. Sis, who gave you the scoop this time? Then she turned to Ryan with a sweet smile. Sorry, Ryan, it was supposed to be a private meeting between our two companies. Funny thing is, this Quinn is my sister. My sister always goes against our dad, but she doesn't have much skill. Do you know how she gets by? She relies on men. Ryan frowned, tossing the documents onto the table with a thud. I gripped the proposal tightly, listening to Ian's ridicule. My pride felt crushed underfoot, but this collaboration was incredibly important to me, important enough that it could help me escape Aaron's suppression and become a person with true self-respect. Arnie gently grabbed my elbow. Quinn, please leave. I held on to the back of the chair, thinking of Josephine, who had stood by me through countless days and nights, of every drink consumed to retain client, and of the radiant success I had fantasized about. I looked into Ryan's eyes with utmost sincerity. Ryan, please give me a chance. Look at the proposal I've prepared. If I truly fall short, I'll admit defeat. Ryan's gaze fell on Arnie's hand gripping my elbow, his fingers twitching as he loosened his thigh. Ian's scornful voice rang out again. Sis, don't you ever get tired of these tricks? At 19, you tricked wild men into coming home to defy dad. Now you use men to get resources at work, and you're trying to win sympathy with this pitiful act. She's young and spoiled by Aaron, so she dares to say anything at the dinner table. At 15, when she made mistakes, Aaron sent her away, and she still hasn't changed this bad habit. She's never met Ryan. She only heard that one year someone I brought home beat up Aaron, so she naturally didn't know who the wild man she spoke of was. I gritted my teeth as Arnie pulled me along. I'm not a gambler, but at this point, I had no choice but to take a gamble. To gamble whether Ryan would show me some mercy this time. Arnie's grip on my elbow wasn't very strong. I swayed slightly to make sure Ryan saw. I steadied myself. I took a few more steps forward, gripping the door handle. The movement, this time, was more pronounced. My steps faltered. Finally, I stepped back abruptly in my high heels. The sound of the heels hitting the floor was loud enough. I counted silently in my head. Then, I fell straight back. 3, 2, 1. Eyes closed, waiting for the outcome. Ryan, please, look at me. When I landed in a familiar embrace, I opened my eyes just a crack. What I saw was the navy tie, relief mixed with more than a bit of bitterness. Ryan, you said we'd be strangers, but you can't seem to change your habit of being soft-hearted toward me. I won the gamble. Ian, this is a real trick. Ryan picked me up in his arms. In his embrace, I could feel his tension and suppressed anger. I relaxed, closing my eyes and listening to the sounds around us. Ryan kicked over chairs and tables, shattering glasses on the floor. Ian's fraying cries could be heard. Finally, there was Ryan's questioning. His voice was filled with the rage of a predator whose prey had been bitten by another reckless group. He asked, Is a wild man Mr. and spoke of me? Do you have any issue with me? Ian, spoiled and frightened, cried. The other project leaders who had come with her repeatedly apologized. This bill goes to Aaron. Ryan left that warning with a strong sense of threat. He carried me swiftly to the car. In the elevator, Arnie asked, Ryan, should I contact the doctor? The sentence was cut off abruptly. Moments later, on a certain floor, Arnie exited the elevator. The elevator was silent, with the sound of a pin dropping clearly audible. The hand that had been under my legs pulled away, and I felt the sensation of falling. I almost instinctively opened my eyes, holding tightly onto Ryan's neck. Ryan. He gripped my waist with his thumb and forefinger, holding me up. The position shifted from being cradled to me hanging onto him. Perhaps my reaction pleased him. His voice carried a hint of amusement. Wrap your legs around me and be good. He knew I was faking. He had seen through these little tricks of mine many times before. The position was embarrassing, but since I needed something from him, I complied. Ryan smiled, not pretending anymore. Not familiar. What is this now? Are you playing me? His palm pressed against the back of my neck. It was fierce, yet not entirely so. Quinn, speak up. The smooth walls of the elevator reflected our embraced figures. Every reunion since we first met has been unpleasant. I had a moment of sadness, burying my face in his neck. Ryan, give me a chance. Ryan paused. His deep, seductive voice echoed in the elevator. Should I say good luck, Or should I say it's up to your abilities? The words were ambiguous, but I understood. Quinn, do you want a chance in love, or just a chance in business? My voice caught, thinking of the past. When I was 20, I used drunkenness to flirt with him. Ryan's veins bulged as he held my hands. Quinn, can you tell the difference? Do you really like me, or are you afraid of losing? I couldn't deny it. The latter was actually stronger than the former. Before coming here, I had a conversation with my mother at the Grandert family villa. Quinn, don't argue with your Uncle Chang until you have the capability. She knew Aaron had secretly installed a camera in my room for over half a year, but never mentioned it. You can't even keep your bodyguard. What can you rely on? Money, beauty, your body. Her words were cutting, awakening me to the truth. Ryan might indulge me, but he doesn't want love with a purpose. All my charms and manipulations had an agenda, and it never gave me a chance. I cried out in his arms. I thought his return would bring conflict, but no matter what, I wanted to have his thoughts again. I couldn't stop wanting it. I tightened my arms around Ryan's neck. Give me a chance. Okay, just one chance. Ryan, just one chance. Over the years, I've learned to love myself well. Once I get through this tough spot, I will truly love you. Ryan carried me into the car, and it slowly drove down the road. Countless lights streamed through the window onto us. He sighed and finally answered my question. It doesn't matter anymore. I was taken aback and sobbed. What? Ryan bowed his head, resting on my shoulder, his fingers brushing over the soft flesh of my waist through the fabric, stroked gently. Whether it's with an agenda or for use, it doesn't matter anymore. Quinn, I'm willing to follow your path. Those words carried a sense of submission. Quinn, your affection isn't sincere, but I'm willing to accept it all. My whole body felt numb. Ryan's warm lips touched my neck. Dopamine began to bubble in the air, and the atmosphere was on the edge of becoming intimate. Arnie, driving, silently raised the partition. In a turn of fate, grievances came flooding in. I pushed Ryan away slightly, tears flowing uncontrollably. You said a few days ago that we'd be strangers from now on. Ryan was stunned. He chuckled, his palm pressed against the back of my head, his voice soft and seductive. Then, a long kiss. Finally, Ryan asked with a touch of mischief. Always remember the harsh words. Even so, he was still the one backing down. Like before, he had rejected me many times. I had been unreasonable and stubbornly angry, and he had been quite helpless. Do you just want to hear me comfort you? Then, he spent the whole night saying sweet things. Arnie dropped us off at an intersection. While waiting for the green light on the sidewalk, a young woman with a dog stood across from us. I pointed to the Alaskan Malamute and looked up, making a request. Ryan, I want a puppy right now. Ryan glanced at me twice, then smiled. When the green light came on and the crowd moved, I thought he would go borrow the dog from the woman. He didn't. Ryan loosened his tie with one hand. The navy tie was wrapped around his wrist and casually tied in a knot. He handed the other end of the tie to me. Then he winked and gave a slightly mischievous smile. Imitating a puppy, he let out a low whine. Whiff. I was completely mortified. My cheeks turned bright red in an instant. A passing child tugged at her mom's sleeve. Mommy, I'm embarrassed. Ryan, in a playful mood, leaned in close to me. Stepmom, do you want to bring the puppy home? Ryan will only love you from now on. It seems that old saying was true. A handsome man can be really bad. I blushed. Have you been studying up on social media posts these past few years? Yeah, I've learned it a lot. If you're willing, we can try out everything I've learned. The Hill family gave me and the Dirt family a fair chance to compete. When things got busy, I barely got to see Ryan. Finally, when things slowed down, I hadn't even dialed his number yet. Brooklyn contacted me first. Her tone was calm, but I could tell she was unhappy. Quinn, break up with Ryan. The cup in my hand slipped and fell to the ground, hot water spilling on my pant leg. It was hot, but I didn't feel it. My heart was pounding with pain. Brooklyn, he's not good enough for you. Let's find someone better. I rushed to the hospital. Ryan was sitting on a bench with his long legs bent. His joints were all bruised. Brooklyn was lying on the hospital bed, propped up on her elbows, and not sparing a single word of criticism toward Ryan. Are you stupid or just rich? Do you know how much you have to pay? You might as well just kill him. He goes in the coffin. You go to jail, long-term residence, and it's free. How great is that? Ryan kept his head down. Expressionless, I was stopped. Brooklyn jumped up in anger. You really are crazy. After their argument, I walked in. Ryan didn't say a word, his face showing defeat. I crouched in front of him. Ryan, does it hurt? He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed my chin and lifted my face. Have you cried? Before coming here, Brooklyn had sent me a message. She said Aaron had sent a message through someone to Ryan. Aaron wanted to exchange all the videos of me from the old surveillance footage for this new deal. Ryan had sent people to smash Aaron's office and nearly killed him. I didn't care what was in the videos. I cared about Ryan. On the way here, Brooklyn told me he was badly injured. In my panic, I had even typed out a long message, saying I was ready to die with him. Ryan, I don't care. I do. Ryan couldn't stand to see Quinn suffer. He cared. Brooklyn was giving Ryan a full-body checkup. While I waited with the other patients, I saw Ian. Brooklyn, I need to use the restroom. Okay. I followed Ian to the VIP ward on the top floor. I always carried a small Swiss Army knife in my bag. It was a gift from Josephine. Pretty girls in the business world often encounter people with ulterior motives, so keep this handy. I never expected it would actually come in handy today. My mom and Ian were there, and Aaron was lying on the hospital bed, bruised and battered. Everyone was surprised to see me. Ian was angry. Quinn, what are you doing here? Aaron looked at me sideways. Did you come to beg me? My mom stood silently beside them. When I pulled the knife out of my bag, Ian screamed. The ferocity I unleashed couldn't be stopped, no matter how hard they tried to hold me back. If I wasn't ruthless, I lose this battle. I pressed the knife tip hard against Aaron's neck, drawing blood instantly. Ian couldn't pull me away. Quinn, do you dare? Aaron, suppressing his fear, shouted loudly. The knife kept pressing down, and the smell of blood spread. I sneered, since I have nothing left, why not drag you down with me? I raised the knife high, gritting my teeth, and made a swift downward motion. Quinn, no one could stop me. Give this project to you. After he shouted, he trembled in fear, his body shaking uncontrollably. The knife tip barely rested on his throat. I want the video. The video's long gone. The computer crashed and didn't save it. I pointed the knife at his eyes. Tell the truth. Is it true? Security arrived. Ryan and Brooklyn came as well. Ryan pulled me into his arms. He was trembling, and so was I. I won. Ryan, yeah. Brooklyn leaned against the wall. That's some strength. I'm keeping this sister-in-law. Ryan, if you can't marry her, I'll get a new brother. Tonight, Ryan was out of control. I bit fiercely at his wrist pulse. He had seen the messages I sent him. He laughed ambiguously, low and unclear. Yeah, let's die together. The following year, my company almost skyrocketed in City A. I successfully regained my self-esteem. The insults and slanders of the past became trivial. Josephine hugged me and cried, repeating, you did it. You really did it. The Dirt family had many problems, and I had developed a vengeful streak. How Aaron had oppressed me back then. I returned the favor twice over. Ian came to beg me. Sister, Mom sent me to ask you. You can hate Dad, but Mom and I are innocent. We're all family. The young lady had lost her arrogance and looked quite worn out. I smiled. Forget it, Ian. I'm not a do-gooder. In the distance, Ryan was waiting for me. I jogged into his arms. Ryan, I'm here. Let's go home. Okay, I have my own home, and I have my Ryan. Epilogue. Ryan had always had smooth sailing, and Quinn was his first real challenge. At 23, he and his friend started a security company. Their first client was her. At 19, Quinn, a bit shy, looked up with her dark, sparkling eyes and asked, I want to hire a bodyguard. His friend laughed, a little kid like you. Why do you need a bodyguard? But this girl knew exactly how to use her advantages. Tears came easily. His friend was startled. Okay, stop crying. He turned to Ryan. Ryan, go comfort her. Ryan, unsure how to handle it, was annoyed and said, stop crying, or I'll throw you out. His friend, she insisted on choosing her own person, and her finger circled around before landing on Ryan. I want him. His friend burst out laughing. Oh, is it because he's good looking? Queen shook her head, saying it wasn't, because he's tough. Ryan was in a phase where he didn't have much to do. Looking at her red, tearful eyes, he finally agreed. It wasn't a difficult job, more of a daily routine. He'd pick her up and drop her off from classes, take her for drives at night, occasionally cook for her, and fend off boys trying to confess to her. He didn't really act like a bodyguard, more like a male nanny. Ryan got bored and annoyed, even refusing the payment. Plus, a 19-year-old girl had boundless energy and always came up with odd ideas. He had to constantly agree and patiently put up with her nonsense. He didn't want to, but Quinn cried so easily. It was annoying, and he had to comfort her. In the beginning, the relationship was distant, but over time, she started to learn how to be affectionate with him. Ryan, will you always be with me? No, it was just a job. There was no such thing as forever. Oh, she was clearly unhappy. Ryan warned himself not to comfort her, knowing that if he did, she'd take advantage. Half an hour later, he couldn't help but ask, why are you unhappy? Ryan, how much money do I need to keep you with me forever? No matter the amount, he would eventually have to return to help the Hill family. I refuse. After saying that, Quinn looked at him, silent, with sadness in her eyes. Ryan should have turned and walked away, but it was too late. Quinn's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Damn, not this trick again. He gritted his teeth, took a few steps out, then came back, alternately getting in. I take back what I said earlier. If the money's right, I'll stay. It was a lie, but it made Quinn happy. She wiped away her fake tears and excitedly said, "Great." Ryan once accompanied her to the Dirt family's house. In that huge mansion, her personal belongings were pitifully few. With him there, she finally dared to come back and retrieve her father's belongings left at the Durn house. There were many servants in the house, but none paid her any attention. Ryan felt an inexplicable anger at the way they looked at her, until he found the hidden camera in her room. His anger turned to pity. Quinn, pale-faced, went to find her mother. That woman adjusted her clothes and answered coldly, "I agreed to this." The police were helpless. By chance, a flat tire happened. The mansion was far from the city center, and at night, almost no cars were willing to come. Reluctantly, they had to spend the night there. Quinn trembled the whole time, and Ryan comforted her. After a long time, he managed to get her to sleep. Ryan watched her sleeping face and remembered a time when the company was busy, and Quinn had fallen asleep on his office sofa waiting for him. He had watched her just like this. His friend leaned against the door. "Ryan, your gaze towards her isn't innocent." He didn't deny it. When did it start? In the middle of the night, someone used a key to open the door. Reeking of alcohol, he staggered toward Quinn's bed. What a beast. Ryan nearly beat him to death. While sitting in the police station, Aaron claimed it was a case of mistaken identity and refused to settle privately. Ryan called Brooklyn, got some help, and only then was the matter resolved. After that, Quinn showed a slight change. Her dependence on him increased dramatically. At the age where emotions were confusing, she would wear a little tank top and dance in front of him. She thought she was good at hiding it, but it was too obvious. It might not be love, but she wanted to keep him around. Quinn had learned many tricks from somewhere. She used to be energetically exhausting to handle. Now she had a myriad of seductive tricks. It required self-restraint, but sometimes it felt impossible to resist. Ryan often recalled the past, and the most memorable of Quinn's little tricks was when she stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. That time, she bought a Polaroid camera and linked her arm with his, saying she wanted to take a picture. Ryan looked good for the camera. He had always looked good, cooperating for over a dozen shots. "Why do you like taking photos so much?" She smiled, leaned in, and rested her arm against him. "For the wedding video in the future." This statement was hard to interpret as true or false, and Ryan was stunned. Then, the girl beside him stood on her toes, kissed his cheek, and quickly pressed the shutter. What did Ryan think at that moment? He thought, "It's over. It's really over." That Durant house shouldn't have let her return. He didn't know what she heard when she went back, but in her drunken state, she insisted on sleeping with him. Ryan refused. He didn't want that kind of affection. "It's better to keep it pure." Ryan told her, "Quinn, you need to learn to love yourself first before you can love others." "All right." Message received. The next day, she was gone, disappeared without a trace. Damn it, Quinn, you really have no heart. Years later, when they met again, he couldn't hold back and seemed a bit harsh. When she said they were going their separate ways, Quinn finally opened the door to leave, and Ryan started to regret it. That day at the hotel, G, as usual, put in a little extra effort. Ryan felt oddly relieved. Good. She still knew he would spoil her and accept whatever she threw at him. In the elevator, he wanted to be a bit harsh with her again, but when Quinn started crying, he lost his temper. She was quite stubborn, but only cried with him. Forget it. Compromise 1,000 times. Not a big deal this time. After that night, Quinn learned to cuddle up to him again. No more calculations. She really liked him. With deep affection, their patched-up days became bright and cheerful again. Brooklyn sent him a message. "Congratulations on finding your way back to love." She had seen Ryan drown his sorrows in alcohol after a forced separation, and she had seen Ryan's obsessive determination to find Quinn again. Ryan smiled and replied, "Sis, you don't have to drink with me anymore. We're in love now. Everything is lovely, and life is bright." They got married. Quinn didn't want to call him good little boy anymore. She liked calling him Ryan. All right then, he liked it. This story has ended. Feel free to subscribe to the channel to get the latest updates, with lots of novels updated daily.